Yes. Okay. Yay. We love Lindsay. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the National Center for Learning Disabilities Advocate Academy 101. This is an introduction to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and Section 504. Yay! I am Susan Reynolds. I'm the NCLD field organizer. I have a child with ADHD and a processing disorder. Um, I have been a military family advocate for many years, and now that my husband's transitioning out of the military through retirement, I have decided to shift my advocacy and focus on the greater disability community. And I'm also an adult with 2 learning disabilities and ADHD. And with us is our phenomenal parent leader out of Texas, Amy Trainer. And Amy, please introduce yourself.
All right, I am Amy Trainer. Thanks, Susan, for the brief intro. I am an occupational therapist and assistive technology professional, but most proud to be mom to 2 kiddos, one of which is an amazing daughter with dyslexia. So I have long supported students in the schools that have learning differences, and I'm getting to parent one now too. So it's super fun, honestly, to be able to witness on both sides of the coin and support as I can. So I get to do a lot of things with my profession and writing for columns and doing all that kind of stuff. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm glad to be here and honored to be supporting all our Texas parents.
Yay! We're glad to have you here too, Amy, because you have been just a phenomenal resource for Texas parents, in my opinion, and your energy is contagious.
Oh,
and it's
sweet.
just fun to be around. And I don't even live I don't live near you, and I still love your energy.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So who is NCLD and what is their mission? NCLD, the National Center for Learning Disabilities, is a nonprofit which was created more than 40 years ago by Carrie and Pete Rozelle of NFL fame. So apparently Pete Rozelle was the NFL commissioner, I believe, for a number of years. I'm not the biggest professional football fan, so I probably need to get a little more knowledgeable on that. They had a child with learning disabilities and they struggled to find resources and support for their child so that their child could thrive. And so they made it their mission to ensure that other parents didn't have to experience the same challenges. Over these 40 years, NCLD has evolved from a direct service organization, which provided information and resources in direct response to parent questions, to one that primarily focuses on policy, advocacy, and research. And today, NCLD's mission is to improve the lives of the 1 in 5 children and adults who struggle with learning and attention issues. And what are learning and attention issues? Well, they're brain-based difficulties that affect the brain's ability to receive, process, store, respond to, and communicate information. However, these children and adults are as smart as their peers. They may struggle with reading, math, written expression, organization, attention, memory, focus, or social learning. But with the right accommodations, these children and adults can thrive in both work and in school. So what is our scope? You probably hear statistics like 1 in 5 often. Who do we mean when we talk about the 1 in 5 and we use it in this context? We're talking about the many children who struggle with learning and attention issues, whether they are diagnosed and receiving formal help through an IEP or a 504 plan or not. We are talking about the students who are identified with having a specific learning disability, such as dyslexia, dyscalculia, ADHD, and the ones that don't have a diagnosis but still struggle with reading, writing, math, attention, and more. We also know that there are 1 in 16 students who receive help through an IEP because of a learning disability or another health impairment. However, there are so many more who struggle unidentified and would benefit from explicit instruction and quality supports. NCLD advocates for all of these students. And we have a strategy. And our strategy is to work through 3 main ways: policy, research, and young adult leadership and advocacy. Historically, NCLD has worked at the national level. However, we have been increasing our work with parents and policymakers in a few key states like Texas, woohoo! And we work across a variety of early childhood, K through 12, and higher education issues. We work with partners to influence policy, which are laws and regulations, that can remove barriers and increase opportunities for students with learning and attention issues. We also work with and convene some of the top experts in the field to push our thinking on important and ever-changing education issues. We conduct and commission research to identify best practices for students with learning and attention issues, and to make sure disability is part of the conversation relating to innovation and education reform. We've recently launched a large effort to engage with young adults across the country who have learning and attention issues, to ensure that their voices are part of the policy and advocacy efforts we undertake. NCLD provides them with leadership, advocacy, and community building opportunities related to issues they care most about. As we know, our children don't stop growing, they continue to grow up. And so having our children become engaged in this young adult leadership program is just, it's just gonna be so amazing for them. To listen to them talk about the issues that they had with transitioning from high school into higher learning or the world of employment. I think we can really do and hear some great things from these kids. I call them kids, though they're not kids anymore, but they are young adults. Some of our priorities include improving how educators are prepared to serve students with learning disabilities and attention disorders. We want to ensure quality screening, intervention, and identification of learning disabilities. We want to prepare students for success by addressing the whole child and developing important non-academic skills such as self-advocacy, self-determination, collaboration, and problem solving. And we understand that intersectionality in special education services, hold on, I'm misreading that. We understand that there's intersectionality with special education services and support. Race, ethnicity, income, and disability can and often intersect, and NCLD recognizes the importance of intersectionality. Why do we advocate? We know that we can't afford to treat learning and attention issues as an afterthought or an add-on to other efforts. That 71% of public school kids with a learning disability graduate with a regular high school diploma compared to the 82% of the general population. 55% of people with learning disabilities are involved in the criminal justice system within 8 years of leaving high school. And 46% of working age adults with learning disabilities are employed, when compared to 71% of the general population. We do more to improve the lives of our children and adults with learning disabilities and attention issues because they deserve it. And we advocate because we know that with the right supports, children and adults can thrive both in school and in life. Which brings us to the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I'm going to turn this over to our parent leader, Amy, and she's going to cover this because, well, I feel that she is quite the expert on this information.
Thanks. Yeah, when you've been working under the guidelines of this for a couple of decades, it is certainly familiar. So,
exactly.
Yes. All right, so what is IDEA? Here's a fun fact to kind of start us off. Did you know that the first and only federal law that addresses special education was signed into effect by a non-elected president? So that's right. President Ford signed the Education for All Handicapped Children Act in 1975, and he was not elected in. But he did sign this most powerful legislation into effect. So over the years, it's changed and evolved into IDEA, which we will be reviewing today. The primary purpose of IDEA are to provide, one, a free, appropriate public education, which we call FAPE, to children with disabilities, and to give parents a voice in their children's education. IDEA receives almost $12 billion in federal funds each year to serve 6.6 million children, teens, and young adults with disabilities. Thank you. There are 13 areas of eligibility that are served through IDEA. They are listed here to include specific learning disability, other health impairment, autism spectrum disorder, emotional disturbance, speech or language impairment, visual impairment, including blindness, deafness, hearing impairment, deaf blindness, orthopedic impairment, intellectual disability, traumatic brain injury, or multiple disabilities. So specific learning disabilities, SLD, is by far the largest category as it includes learning disabilities such as dyslexia. That's perhaps the most common, most widely known learning disability. Perceptual disabilities, brain injuries, minimal brain dysfunction, and developmental aphasia, which is kind of a language disorder. OHI is the next largest eligibility category as it covers health issues, including but not limited to ADHD. That is about 70% of the OHI category. Asthma, diabetes, epilepsy, heart conditions, hemophilia, lead poisoning, and cancer, to name a few. All right, so IDEA has 5 concepts, and that we're going to expand upon on the next following slides that include free and appropriate public education, FAPE, child find, least restrictive environment, LRE is what we call it in the biz, individual education program, IEP, and procedural safeguards. All right, FAPE, free and appropriate education. What is FAPE and what does it require a school to do and not to do? So FAPE requires a school to provide special education and related services at no cost to the parents, provide accommodations and modifications, create an IEP, and implement the IEP in the least restrictive environment. What FAPE does not require a school to do is to provide the best service possible, provide a specific program or class setting that you want, or guarantee a spot in an extracurricular or sports team. So courts have used a car analogy to help everybody kind of understand what FAPE is. They've held that while children are not entitled to, quote, a Cadillac program, they are entitled to a serviceable Chevrolet that runs. And what works for most kids won't work for every child. In order to provide FAPE, the law requires schools to provide services that are individualized to meet the unique needs of each child. Courts have held that to receive FAPE, your child must receive meaningful educational benefit. Additionally, schools must provide your child equal access to curriculum and the opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities, but don't have to guarantee placement on a team or a spot in an event or anything like that. And then child find. The child find mandate, what is that? Well, the child find mandate is a legal requirement for public schools to find children ages birth through 21 who have disabilities and may need support and services. This includes children who attend private school and or are homeschooled. So every kid pretty much in their jurisdiction. Identifying children is a great first step and very important to ensure that each child's education is appropriate to their needs. Child Find requires that districts have a process for both identifying and evaluating children who might need special education and related services, including but not limited to speech, occupational, and physical therapy. As I mentioned, Child Find requires locating even those children too young for public school services. Even infants and toddlers can be evaluated and receive services and support through community and early intervention programs. All right, and here's that LRE we've said. LRE, least restrictive environment, it's a term that you'll hear a lot, but what exactly is it? So LRE is a concept, not an actual physical space or location per se. Regarding least restrictive environment, IDEA says that your child should be with students in general education to the maximum extent that is appropriate. By definition, the general education classroom is the least restrictive environment. The key to the concept, however, is the word appropriate. Appropriate refers to what is suitable for your child to meet his or her needs. The general education classroom isn't always suitable when a specific service, support, or program cannot be implemented with fidelity in that setting. It is always appropriate for the school to try the least restrictive environment, most inclusive setting, and increase the level of support a child needs before suggesting or trying a more restrictive setting. All right, the Individualized Education Program, the IEP. This is a legal document, a contract between the school and you on behalf of your child that outlines your child's individual needs and how they will be supported by the school. In Texas, the IEP is developed by the ARD Committee, Admission, Review, and Dismissal Committee, which is always inclusive of a parent or the parents or guardian. The team meets at least annually to make sure that the child's goals and needs are being met. We'll dive into further into IEP preparation in our third Advocacy Academy session, but wanted to make sure that we touched on the IEP as the driving force for special ed programming. All right, procedural safeguards. These are the legal protections for both you and your child as outlined in IDEA and are provided to the parents at least once a year. They include procedural safeguard notice, parent participation, access to educational records, confidentiality of information, informed or parental consent, prior written notice, understandable language, independent educational evaluation or IEE, stay put rights, and dispute resolution options. We will dig into the procedural safeguards in more detail in our third session, but essentially the procedural safeguards outline the legal process or the procedures that the school must follow in situations such as when evaluations are requested, help that the family can obtain when you disagree with the school's suggestions, and protecting your child's confidentiality. Again, we'll dive deeper into the procedural safeguards in the third session. All right, so disputes are going to happen, right? Everybody doesn't always agree on what might be best for the child, which is unfortunate, but IDEA has built in the steps for resolving disputes, which include negotiating with the school, mediation resolution sessions, due process hearing, state complaints, and a lawsuit. Again, we'll expand more on this in our third session, preparing for an ARD IEP meeting. So we've included live links in this session to additional information on the topics that we've touched on today. One specific topic I want to draw your attention to is the link about organizing an IEP binder. We will discuss in much more detail about preparing for your IEP and later academies, but I really want to emphasize the importance of keeping all correspondence and paperwork from the very beginning, even prior to IEP development, if at all possible. All right, the purpose of an IEP. I'm going to read this quote. Disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the right of individuals to participate in or contribute to society. Improving educational results for children with disabilities is an essential element of our national policy of ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. So that quote is directly from IDEA and is the entire purpose of your child's IEP. It also helps to shape a nice reflective question that could be posed to an IEP or ARD committee. Will the work that we do here today lead to equity of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for this child? All right, what if your child is denied an IEP? Having your child evaluated doesn't mean that they will automatically qualify for an IEP. Your child could be denied educational supports and services through an IEP, but there are other options. What other options might there be? You could ask about a 504 plan for your child. These educational plans are also an option for children with learning disabilities and attention disorders. That brings us to the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 and Section 504. All right, to give you a little background, Section 504 is part of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act and was the first civil rights law for people with disabilities in the United States. Section 504, like I said, is part of that law. Section 504 prohibits disability discrimination from any program that receives federal funds, which includes public schools. Public K-12 schools are required to offer 504 plans, while colleges and universities are not. However, colleges and universities are required to provide accommodations for students with disabilities under the Americans with Disabilities Act. All right, a 504 plan is an educational blueprint for your child. The plan will outline how the school will provide supports and remove barriers in the general education setting for a child with a disability. 504 plans are not as comprehensive as an IEP. Similar to an IEP, a 504 plan provides for supports and removal of barriers, however, does not include specially designed instruction. For example, a 504 plan might include preferential seating, use of a graphic organizer, extended time for tests, and standardized testing or checklists that assist with task initiation and or task completion. As with an IEP, disputes can happen. So there are steps outlined to resolve those and include mediation, alternative dispute resolution, impartial hearing, complaints to the Office of Civil Rights, and lawsuits. Remember, we are going to explore this further in our 4th Advocacy Academy session. A lot to say. All right, and the purpose, it's always important to remember the purpose of a 504 plan is to provide accommodations at the school so the general education classroom fits how your child learns and participates. Let's see. All right, so now we've got where to find help. In the next few slides, we are going to share with you some national, state, and local organizations. These organizations advocate for children and adults with disabilities, as well as assist families in their local communities with IEPs and 504. So national resources include this one that I'm honored to be a part of, the National Center for Learning Disabilities. We are alliance partners with Educating All Learners. And then, of course, the Learning Disabilities Association of America is also a great source for information. Some other national resources include Understood. Understood breaks down complex information into bite-sized pieces that are easy to understand and learn about. Each state has a free parent center, and you can find our state or any other state's parent center through the Parent Center Hub website. 2 great resources for special education policy and advocacy include Rights Law and the Council of Parent Attorneys and Advocates. They write books and hold conferences regarding policy and advocacy. So then state and local resources, the national organizations, they have great information about policy and big picture of things. However, the best place to find help or get questions answered about your child's IEP or 504 plan is really through our state or local community. While NCLD cannot answer questions about your child's IEP or 504 plan, these are state resources that certainly can help you. They include Disability Rights Texas, Coalition of Texans with Disabilities, the ARC of Texas, SpedTex, that's actually one of my favorites. They have a great 800 number and their website is super user-friendly, have had lots of support through them. Texas Project First. There's more on the other list. We're blessed with resources in Texas for sure. Team Project Partners Resource Network, Texas Parent to Parent, Children's Disability Information Coalition, and the Texas Education Agency. So these resources, again, they are free and available to all families in Texas. I really encourage you to take advantage of them and ask questions. And don't forget to connect with parents in your own community too. I think connecting with parents really creates a neat bond and support system and are really a phenomenal resource for one another.
Do you want me to do this part?
That's your part. You're the
my part. Yay. Yeah. So, hey, don't forget to connect with NCLD. You can follow us on social media. I have to remember to ask to get our Instagram handle put in, or get our Instagram put in here, because I keep forgetting that, and that's my bad. If you have any general information questions about the Advocate Academies, you can email us at info@ncld.org. If you have questions about the policies that we're working on and you wish to be more involved, or you just want to know and you want some answers, you can email us at policy@ncld.org. And then, as Amy mentioned, we have additional Advocate Academies coming up. So we have 4 more in our 101 series, and then we're going to have 2 in our 201 series. And so our next one coming up in July, fingers crossed, July, will be about assistive technology and what it actually is. I am actually the most excited for this one because I have, in the research I've been doing lately, I have been blown away by what assistive technology actually is. And then we will, for our 3rd Advocate Academy, talk about IEP preparation. And we need to do that. I mean, we need to talk about how to read evaluation reports, what are the various words and phrases and acronyms you're going to start hearing or are already hearing, and what is it when we're talking about IEP goals? What are IEP goals, right? And then our fourth one is going to be about 504 plan meeting. And again, it's a reading the evaluation reports, the words and phrases. And because we use the word accommodation a lot more and in conjunction with the 504 plan, what are some valuable accommodations? And then we're going to tie it all together. And our goal is to invite some of the members of our young adult leadership to come and talk to us about what it is, what it's like to be a young adult, transitioning out of the school and into the world of work. But what we also want to do is talk about all of these trainings that we've attended and how does it work to ensure that our children do grow into adults who will be able to ask for workplace accommodations and be able to succeed later on in life. And then, as I mentioned, we have our 201 coming up, and we've broken that into two different courses. I want to say classes, but they are courses and classes. It's the same thing. So first, we're going to focus on state and local advocacy, attending school board meetings, making, getting involved at the local level. So if there's no one on your school board that is there representing children with learning disabilities, well, start attending and you start talking about it, like start asking questions. Sure, people might not like the questions, but that's okay. That's what you're there for. And we want to teach you how to research and understand the research that you're reading. We want to fact check because it's really important to do that. How do we understand policies? And how do we take our personal story of what's happening to our family and our children, and how do we create great change with it? And then we're going to do the same thing on the federal side, because as we know, IDEA is a federal policy, but we also need to talk about it like at that biggest level, right? How is it being funded? Are there any potential changes that could be coming down the pipeline? We need to know that because, again, it's important to understand the policies, to research the facts about it, and to also share your personal story. Just a quick, funny little story aside here. I meant to tell this with the other two advocate academies, but we have a U.S. Senator out of Washington State that she got her start by attending school board meetings, and this man very flippantly said to her, what are you going to do? You're just a mom in tennis shoes. And this is back in the 80s, I think. Well, now she's U.S. Senator Patty Murray, so that's what she did, right? So it's important to start out and go to these meetings to understand what the heck is going on, because I don't know, that, maybe that could be something cool to happen. I'm not putting any ideas out there, but I'm saying you need to start in understanding what the heck is going on, right? And state and local advocacy really impacts our students and our population of students the most. So
you don't have to have a big title to make a big impact, for sure.
Amen, sister. That is absolutely true. And that is what we have so far. So thank you all for attending our Advocate Academy. We are going to stop recording.